Okay, we already know from our previous discussions that Alzheimer's and all of the other neurodegenerative diseases are characterized by neuroinflammation. So, how is that different from type 1 inflammation? Well, type 1 Alzheimer's is where brain dysfunction is associated with constant inflammation in the body. This is not just inflammation, but persistent chronic inflammation. And this inflammation may not have just started in the brain, but the brain is nonetheless affected. So, for us to resolve this type of inflammation, we need to answer two questions. Firstly, what is causing the inflammation? Secondly, where is ground zero for the inflammation? Let's address our first question. What is causing the inflammation? To answer this question, we first need to understand what inflammation really is. Inflammation has been demonized by both conventional and functional medicine. Doctors and alternative medicine practitioners alike prescribe so many anti inflammatory drugs or herbs all the time. So it's not surprising that everyone thinks that inflammation is bad. But it's important to understand that inflammation is actually just a signal that the body uses to communicate to its immune system. You can think about inflammation like the bat signal. When the Gotham City police need Batman, they put up the signal. In the same way, inflammation is a signal that your immune cells secrete because the immune system is trying to recruit other immune cells to come and help out. So the inflammation signal is used for two primary purposes in the body. The first is to signal to immune cells that there is an invader, like a pathogen. So it's like issuing a red alert signal to your soldiers that they need to go to war. And the second is to signal to repair cells that there's tissue damage. So immune cells responsible for clearing damage and repairing tissue can be brought in. And in this context, it's important to understand that no inflammation also means no repair. Okay, so inflammation occurs because we either need to fight pathogens or repair damage. Then why would the body be chronically inflamed? The answer is that our immune system is unable to appropriately fight off these infections, and so you get continuous damage to the tissues. You see, there's more and more evidence that the amyloid-beta protein is actually an antimicrobial protein that protects against bacterial and fungal infections. But it's a very crude tool that is not very specific to the pathogen. The body has better tools like T cells, which can target pathogens much more effectively. You can think of your T cells like your ninjas or your snipers. However, if your immune system is poisoned due to toxic exposures or high blood glucose, or it lacks the nutrients to do its job properly, then your body has to rely on the less sophisticated part of the immune system, which is called the innate immune system, to help you out. And amyloid beta belongs to the innate immune system department. The innate immune system works more like a Molotov cocktail bomb. It's not very good at killing invasive pathogens, but it creates a lot of collateral damage in your tissues. So now you have a chronic infection that persists along with lots of tissue damage. Apart from pathogens, there are also processes in the body like persistent high blood glucose, which can directly contribute to tissue damage that leads to chronic inflammation. So if you have pathogenic infections and diabetes, then you're set up for double the inflammation. We'll discuss more about this when we look into type 1.5 Alzheimer's. Okay, now question number 2. Where is the inflammation coming from? And the answer to this question is critical because it'll help us hone in on the culprit so that we can address the infection. As I said earlier, inflammation doesn't have to originate from the brain to affect the brain. So where else can inflammation come from that can affect the brain? The answers are the mucosa and systemically. So what is the mucosa? That's the inside lining of the hollow space organs in your body where you have tissues that are kind of wet and have substances like air, fluid, or food flowing through them. Examples are the insides of your mouth and your nasal passages, your gastrointestinal tract or GI tract, all the way down to the anus, the bladder and urinary tract, and the lungs. Wait, you mean Alzheimer's can be caused by mouth and gut infections? That's right. And there's plenty of research evidence on this. Research written about how P. gingivalis, the bacteria implicated in periodontal disease, and H. pylori, the bacteria that causes stomach ulcers, are directly associated with Alzheimer's disease. In fact, more and more research has shown that the gut microbiome is so involved in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's that scientists are now looking into the possibility of using fecal transplants as a way to treat Alzheimer's. There's also a lot of evidence that systemic infections, and particularly viral infections, are implicated in Alzheimer's disease. The biggest culprit is the herpes simplex virus 1, or HSV1, which usually causes cold sores around the mouth. Research has shown that this virus directly increases amyloid-beta production and accumulation inside brain neurons. And apart from HSV1, there are other pathogens associated with Alzheimer's. Even the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes COVID, has been shown to increase amyloid deposition in the brain. And since it takes years, if not decades, of persistent infection and inflammation to cause enough damage to lead to Alzheimer's, scientists are increasingly concerned about a possible tsunami of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's within a decade of 2019. Interestingly enough, there's actually a lot of published literature about the role of infectious pathogens in causing Alzheimer's and how we can go about treating this root cause. So now you're probably thinking, wow, what? How come my doctor never told me that infections can cause Alzheimer's? Well, that's because pharmaceutical companies and conventional medicine are still stuck in the thinking that chronic conditions result from the body going rogue. So they remain focused on just clearing amyloid beta with their latest drugs, and they're not focused on why the amyloid proteins are forming in the first place. In the next few lessons, we'll review how to find the chronic infections that are plaguing you and how to address them.
This was an excerpt from our Masterclass Ending Alzheimer's with the Bredesen Protocol. If you liked this video and found it helpful, you'll want to check out this Masterclass at our Sophus online website. Click below to find out more.